president was not a Russian agent, Congressman. Would you say the president is not a Russian agent?
The president acts on Russia's behalf. I don't need to see the Mueller report for that.
So
Also,
then you don't care
Neil,
what the report says. You've drawn your own conclusions.
Oh, no, no.
So Erxwall was saying, right at the Mueller report and everything else, that guilt by association, appearances are everything, jumping to the conclusion, later proven false, that, you know, the president was in bed with the Russians. So now he wants the treatment that he was not offering the president, and that is that we shouldn't be jumping to conclusions based on his alleged connections to this Chinese spy. John Yoo on that, with us right now, the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General, University of California, Berkeley law professor, much, much more. What do you think of that, John? I mean, obviously everyone is entitled to just hear all the facts, but he wasn't offering that for Donald Trump, you know, almost 2 years ago.
Well, first, he doesn't seem to acknowledging how serious this is. I mean, China is a far more serious adversary of the United States than Russia. China clearly tried to insert agents throughout our political system, and one of them succeeded in penetrating somewhat into Congressman Swalwell's operations. He should be very concerned about it. Instead, his first reaction is to attack Donald Trump. I mean, he's still been, you know, I guess that's a reflex for him. It's like you hit his knee and he attacks Donald Trump from 2 years ago. But he should acknowledge this is a very serious problem. It's not something you can just sort of wave away with your hands and say it's all Trump's fault. And then the second point, as you said, his position on this is extremely hypocritical, I think, compared to the way he acted during the impeachment and during the Mueller report. I mean, he's accusing people of leaking classified information against him. That's exactly the kind of information he was using in impeachment, the same things he's worried about Mueller. And then the third thing, as you said, go look at his website online. He's still got pages up saying, oh, Donald Trump is either incompetent or he's duped or he's actually working on behalf of the Russians because he's so close to them. I mean, you look at, here you have Chinese agents who are raising money for his campaigns, who are asking him to hire interns and people for his office. If you were, as you said, if you were going to say guilt by association, is he any less guilty of the things that he was accusing Donald Trump of?
Normally, when you see charges raised like this, whether they're proven or not, you take some precautions. Those around the president, you question as well their access to special intelligence and the like. Now, he sits on the Intelligence Committee, and it's a unique committee that meets at a separate locale that discusses things about which there is no sharing with your, your colleagues. At a minimum, should they look at suspending him from at least serving on the committee until all of this is ironed out, if not forever?
Well, Neil, that's a good question. That's what worries me about his reaction to this is if you were, say you were Fox, someone said Chinese intelligence has tried to penetrate your studio operations or your team there, the first thing you would say, I think, is let's have an investigation. I want to know exactly what's been going on. I don't want people working for me who might be working for Chinese intelligence. You wouldn't say, oh, the FBI's lying or the FBI's leaking this against me. You would want to have an open, transparent investigation. And then, of course, you would need to step down from the Intelligence Committee because you shouldn't be having access to the nation's top secrets. I mean, the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, they are privy to almost everything the CIA and the NSA are doing. They are privy to our nation's most jealously guarded secrets. At least step down temporarily while you have an open investigation to figure out exactly what happened and then to get it out there. That's sort of what he wanted from the Trump administration. He should hold himself to the same standard.
You know, I'm just wondering, the bigger story here to me, but forget the political accusations back and forth here, the role the Chinese and how sophisticated they were in potentially interfering with some of our highest ranking, politicians and those with direct lines to the intelligence community. I mean, we've been focused on Russia so much, I think a lot of us lost sight of China right in front of our eyeballs here.
Well, first, we should recognize, as I think many strategists have, China is the greatest long-term adversary and competitor to the United States now and for the foreseeable future. Far more, I think, than Russia. I mean, Russia's an important country, but they're not the kind of economic, political, and security threat that China is. And you can see China is, as they have with other Western democracies, is trying to infiltrate and influence our system. our system is extremely open. And because that allows people like this agent here to try to get close to politicians. It may be in the end Swalwell did nothing wrong, but the more we can bring light to it, the more we can have an investigation, the better.
Right, and to your point, we want to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's just a pity that he did not, back in March of 2019, give the president the benefit of the doubt. But again, there's a lot more to uncover here, a lot more to see. John Yoo, thank you very, very much. The former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo. In the meantime, you want to learn and find out more about this, you can always go to our, and we encourage you to use our Fox News app to get more details on all of this. It covers not only all angles, it goes back in history to take a look at the kind of things that are happening now that sound eerily familiar to some of the charges that were hyped up then, but a number of top Democrats are saying do not apply now. On the app, you can find out for yourself. Are they right? Are they wrong? Are they being fair? Are they being remotely balanced? In the meantime, the hunt for COVID relief, it once seemed impossible, but they are closing the gap on a couple of key issues, just not fast. After this. Chad, as in Chad Pergram, on this incredible confusion over stimulus and paying our bills, not making sure the government lights go off. He's keeping track of all of it right now, but it does look like this COVID-19 relief, Chad, is kind of stalled. Where are we here?
That's right, Neil. Well, there's no agreement on COVID aid, and there probably won't be any pact until next week at the earliest. The House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer says the House probably won't vote again until there's a deal. There are still problems with funding for state and local governments and a liability shield. This worries Republican Louisiana Senator John Kennedy.
We're stuck in the same place we were 4 months ago. What I think the leader ought to do is just eliminate the things we can't agree on, put the things on the floor we can agree on.
Many Senate Republicans don't like the bipartisan Senate plan. One source described that offer as, quote, just talk. December is always the worst time of the year at the Capitol as lawmakers struggle to finish their work. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is already hinting at the nightmare after Christmas.
People do want to get home for the holidays, such as that is. But what's more important is that we get the job done for the American people before the holidays. But we've been here after Christmas.
The hope is to attach a coronavirus package to a big government funding bill, but the Senate hasn't even approved a stopgap bill, to avoid a shutdown tomorrow night, Neil.
All right, Chad Pergram, thank you very, very much. All right, the fuss over Airbnb and so many other new offerings. I want you to meet the Wall Streeter who was bullish when no one is, and now is still that way. Ed Yardeni on where we go from here after this. All right, Airbnb, the place to be, the latest big offering in what has been a year of record offerings at the corner of Wall and Broad. Jackie DeAngelo's keeping track of, well, I guess the records we hit every day. Jackie.
Hey, Neil, this was something Airbnb making its debut earlier on the NASDAQ, ticker ABNB. Now, the stock skyrocketed 115% at the open at 146 a share. It went higher, and then it closed just under that. Last night, it priced at 68. So if you had the shares, you got more than twice that right out of the gate. Earlier this year, you saw the valuations climb from $30 billion to $47 billion, where it's trading now roughly $100 billion. A couple of things here. The market is hot right now. There are investors looking for diversification and new names. So that's some of the appetite. But Airbnb is also a unicorn. It totally disrupted the hotel and travel industry like Uber did with taxis. But unlike Uber, this company saw profitability in 2017 and 18, and it's back from its pandemic lows, showing a profit in the third quarter, too. There was that pandemic effect early on, but like Amazon, Airbnb was able to capitalize on people's desire for these short-term rentals, and its business did come back. The profitability coming back from this pent-up demand. According to the company, one day in July saw the company hit 1 million bookings, with half of them within 300 miles from home. And Neil, you asked me about this earlier, so I'll leave you with this. It was a 51.6 million share offering. 16.8 million shares of the company's stock was allocated to Airbnb employees and others associated with the company. So many people today, from the CEO down the chain, are feeling this move.
Oh, that's nice. You don't hear that very often. Jackie, thank you very, very much. Very happy to have this next gentleman with us. In the decades I've been covering Wall Street, and I know I don't look that old, but neither does he, come to think of it. Ed Yardeni has been an uncannily prescient read of developments, not only in the markets and the economy, very good review of the land. Ed Yardeni, Yardeni Research President, with us now. Ed, always good to see you, and thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
You've been bullish. You were bullish even in the downdraft. I remember we were experiencing the height of the pandemic. Are you still?
I am not wildly bullish, simply because there's too many bulls out there. I much prefer being bullish when there's a lot of caution. But right now, everybody's bullish. But I think the market's looking past the pandemic to the second half of next year and perceiving that we'll probably have a boom at that time. Not that the economy is performing too badly right now. We've had a V-shaped recovery.
You know, Ed, a lot of people have been likening the demand for these new corporate offerings, these IPOs, back to 1999 and the height of the internet boom that, as we know, soon went bust. Do you see any risk of that here now?
Well, you remember that Prince song, Party Like It's 1999? It's starting to feel a little bit like that, I have to say. The NASDAQ's up, what, about 70, 80%. Back then, in 1999 through 2000, we had a party in the NASDAQ, it was up 200%. So we're about, halfway there in terms of the kind of excesses we had in 1999, 2000. But then we just have a deluge of dot-coms, and a lot of them were just concepts. And they came to market, and they had no earnings. A lot of these companies, as you mentioned before, here are disruptors. They are radically changing business models, and I think they're doing it for the better, towards more productivity, more services for the consumer. Honestly, I think once we get past this pandemic, I think we could be looking at the roaring 2020s. Just a tremendous amount of technology boosting productivity and increasing prosperity on a pretty broad basis. I know that's a little too optimistic for some people, given how badly things feel right now. But my experience has been when things are bad, start to think about what could go right.
What do you tell young investors who look at this now and say, well, I've missed the rallies, I've missed the real big gains, I've missed, the Amazons and the Teslas and the eye-popping returns that they've enjoyed. If I get in, I'm way late. What do you tell them?
Well, look, it's a huge stock market. There's a lot of stocks. It's not just the S&P 500. It's the S&P 1500, and beyond that, there's even more companies that one can buy in the market. I think it's going to be a great decade. The rest of the decade is going to be great for stock pickers. So I think if you don't have a day job that keeps you very busy and you're very excited about, if you're going to day trade, don't, because I think that's going to be very difficult, except for very few people. I think what you should do on a daily basis is do a lot of homework and research. And I think there are a lot of great companies, some of them small, some of them large, that are going to be a great opportunity in the decade ahead. So you never really miss a stock market. There's always something.
Yeah, and it's always your time horizon. Of course, I'm at the age now, Ed, where long-term is lunch tomorrow for me. But I'd like to get your thought, real quick, on the possibility of things that Wall Street isn't counting on, and that you always have to be prepared for. The possibility that both these Georgia Senate races go to the Democrats. Yes. Now, that would give them control of the Senate. Maybe unlikely to some, but the market's had its surprises in the past. If that were to happen, what would your forecast look like?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because when things are this bullish and when everybody's this bullish, I tend to put a worry list together. And I just recently wrote a piece on what could possibly go wrong. It's like you look at the market and the market's basically saying nothing can go wrong. But I think you make a good point. Right. There are problems we need to anticipate. If the blue wave kind of rises from the dead here and the Democrats get both Georgia seats, that could lead to just an open-ended policy opportunity for Democrats on the extreme side. There is a fellow from West Virginia who's a Democrat and a conservative who claims that he won't let some of the really crazy stuff get through, but it's something to be concerned about, certainly. The real contrary scenario here, of course, would be that we get such a boom next year that inflation comes back and interest rates go up, and it would be just horrible.
Do you see
if
that
inflation
happening? I
came
mean,
back.
a lot of people forget inflation, and they do. They don't remember that. But do you see that as a legitimate threat?
Well, I don't, but I'm concerned about it because I have to be concerned about it because the alternative to my bullishness is a scenario where inflation does come back, interest rates do go up, and that could create a whole mess of problems for the economy, for the stock market, for a lot of people who've borrowed money. So it's definitely a very relevant scenario in terms of the alternative to what could possibly go wrong. Well, obviously, the biggest thing that could go wrong from a fundamental perspective would be too much of a good thing. We come out of the pandemic, everybody's, feels like
Who started out being one of the few bullish, get nervous because they got a lot of company. When we come back, waiting for that FDA decision could be just a matter of hours, maybe even sooner.